Hello, it's me, Johanna, and I'm back here today to explain how to get 22 out of 22 points for your Psych IA. So, I just want to make it clear here, I still don't have any credentials. I am just a DP2 student. However, I thoroughly read the IBO criteria and website and all that stuff, so I'll be going through all of the official information that has been given to me. Everything that I use in this video will be linked down below, so if you want to go check out the criteria yourself or the example that I will be using to exemplify the criteria, you can also find that in the description box. There are four main aspects to this essay. So there is an introduction, there is an exploration, which could also be called like results, I guess. There is an analysis, and there's an evaluation / discussion. Now, an important thing to note is in every single essay you write for the IB, it is crucial that you are super clear about what you are writing. So when you write introduction, make sure that your heading is introduction and your subheadings make sense and all that stuff, because they will mark you down if it's not clear or if your structure is not coherent. I suspect the people watching this video will be in DP2 and are thus finishing their Psych IA. However, if you are in DP1 and you don't even know what the Psych IA is, I'll give a little brief explanation. So essentially, you have to pick a study that already exists, a psychological study then, an experiment that has already been done, and then you have to replicate it, and then either your results verify the original study or they refute the original study. So that's like the basis of it. So for the introduction, which by the way, I zoomed in here to the top strands of the criteria because I expect you all to be aiming for the highest you possibly can get. And for this criteria, it's out of 6 marks for the introduction. So in the introduction, so you start with your heading, which is introduction. Then you have to state the aim of your investigation and why it is relevant. You have to explain the theory or model which the investigation is about. So if you use a study that is about anchoring, like you're replicating the study, then you explain the study and also the theory used within the study. So like, what is anchoring? How does it work? What did the results reveal? Da 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 da. And when they say aim, you have to explain the aim of your study and the study that you're replicating. So you have a section where you explain the study that you are replicating, and in that one you say like the researcher's aim was da 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 da, and then you have to write it on your own in like a separate paragraph. You have to be like, the study of this investigation is this, because they mean for you to write both aims, not just the aim of the original study. So the independent variable, also and dependent variable, have to be stated and operationalized in the null or research hypothesis. So you should put both a null and research hypothesis. So first of all, the independent variable is what you're changing in between the conditions. So let's say you are testing whether it is easier for someone to remember when they read words or when they hear words. Then your independent variable would be whether they are reading or hearing, because it's what you're changing between the two conditions. The dependent variable is what you're measuring. So in that case, what you're measuring is the amount of words they can remember. So that's what the independent and dependent variable are. Now, if you want them to be operationalized, that means that you are explaining how they're going to be measured and all of the details. So you're not just saying audio, writing, how many words they remember. Like, you add more detail. You'll be like, oh, they have 30 seconds after they heard all the words or read all the words, and then we count the amount of words that are remembered. Like, you're explaining like how these independent and the dependent variable will be like fully used in the experiment. Now, a null hypothesis is essentially stating that there is no significant difference between the two conditions. Meanwhile, a research hypothesis is stating what you like actually believe is going to happen. So you'll be like, oh, when a student reads words, they're more likely to remember la 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 la, So that's what that is. And now I will go into an example essay and I will show you how these marks were rewarded. So this essay was marked 22 out of 22, and just for FYI, the reason I'm not using my own essay is because I will not get the grades back for it until like June. So it would be unfair of me to show my essay because even though I think it's great, like it might not be, and I don't want to give you like misinformation or anything. So that's just that. So as you can see, you start here, you have a simple title about what you're doing, word count. Remember, the word count for the Psych IA is 2,000 words, and you should have at least 1,800. So being in between 1,800 and 2,000 words is absolutely perfect. That's great. So as you can see here, there is a heading, introduction. You make it really clear for the examiner. They know what they're seeing. That's great. So the first paragraph should be explaining the theory that your whole essay will be focused on. So in this case, they're talking about the levels of processing, and they're citing their sources. I just want to make that super clear. You have to cite your sources in the introduction. The rest of your essay, there most likely won't be that many sources to cite, but in your introduction, there should definitely be a source. If there isn't, you're doing it wrong. Okay, and you should always try and have a source that is an actual psychological study, like even if it's not the one you are replicating, if you find a different one that explains your theory and you use their explanation, then you have to cite them. And it's good if it's like something official and not just like a random website, you know. But that's okay too. Like if you can't find a study that explains it, then you can use a website, but they recommend for you to use like actual studies. So here they have explained what the level of processing theory is, this first paragraph. Then in the second paragraph, they go into the actual study that they are going to replicate. So in this paragraph where you're explaining the study that you are going to replicate, you should explain the aim of that study, the method used to find the results in that study, and what the findings showed. So that's it. That's one paragraph. Then your next paragraph is the aim of your study, which as you can see here, they literally wrote the aim of this study, which I recommend everybody to do, like make it super clear. Then you should explain, in the same paragraph, you can explain the importance. So in this case, they wrote here, it potentially supports the idea that if what we learn in school is relevant to our own identity, then we should be able to recall it better than if there is no personal relevance attached to it. So essentially you're saying this is important because we can learn better in school. Like we can find a more effective way to learn, which is a good justification. Now the last thing you have to do is write the null hypothesis and the research hypothesis. So the null hypothesis is just saying there is no significant difference between the two conditions, basically, but like use actual words like what the conditions are, don't just say between the two conditions. So the research hypothesis states that there is a difference between the two conditions and then also should operationalize the independent and dependent variable. So in this case, it says the research hypothesis is that the participants who use self-referent encoding will recall significantly more words from a list of 40 words than participants who engage in shallow processing. So here the dependent variable is operationalized by saying more words from a list of 40 words, like they're specifying, like it's out of 40 words, they're adding some details into it. Then the independent variable is operationalized in this sentence afterwards where it says self-referent encoding will be accomplished by asking participants if a word describes them. Shallow processing will be accomplished by da 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 da. Like you're explaining how you are creating the two conditions. That is operationalizing your independent variable. So make sure to do that, and you don't have to do it both in the null hypothesis and research hypothesis, you only have to do it in one of them. Now underneath, this student has decided to write the independent variable is da-da-da, the dependent variable is da-da-da-da. You do not actually have to do that. If you write them in your research hypothesis, that's enough. You do not have to refer to them as independent variable and dependent variable. You can, but you don't have to. So that was it for criterion 1, the first criteria of the Psych IA. If you follow the structure being write about the theory, then write about the study that was replicated, then write about your aim, then write the null hypothesis and the research hypothesis. If you follow those steps, you should get all those 6 points that are possible. Now, please feel free to subscribe, like, and comment, and stay tuned because in the next couple hours, I will be releasing the other 4 parts to this video. This is just part 1. Parts 2, 3, and 4 will be going through all the other criterias involved. So please stay tuned, and I hope you learned something. Goodbye.